Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to our third episode for our youth spirituality show. We're again joined by our amazing panelists, Nal, Mariam, and Abid. It's nice to have you guys back.
Assalamu alaikum.
Ramadan's gone so quickly, hasn't it? How has it been for you guys?
So fast.
So quick. It's been a blur.
Yeah, honestly, it's gone way too fast.
Yeah, I agree. So for today's episode, we wanted to discuss two things: celebrities and addictions. And specifically celebrities that have come across and have run-ins with spirituality. So unfortunately, celebrities are seen as role models in our society. And it's not,
It's not a good thing.
but I think it's interesting to see how some have gone towards the path of spirituality in order to have a break and to have something more than the lifestyle that they're used to, and finding comfort in that in the midst of their public lives. So amongst ourselves, we discussed Jay Shetty and his journey. So apparently he went to Cass Business School here in London, and he was inspired to become a monk after his friend convinced him to go to this lecture that he really didn't want to go to when he was only 18. And that's what inspired his whole journey. He went to India, he did the training and everything. He lived there for ages. And he now has 3.5 million YouTube subscribers, 6 million Instagram followers, and more than 27 million Facebook friends. And that's where he sort of started off. And I think he's also on TikTok now. And obviously he gained popularity off of there. That's where I've heard of him. And yeah, so he turned his life around at the young age of 18, which is quite odd, I think, for someone at the age of 18 to have such a life-changing sort of eureka moment. And this guy who he was lectured by, he then followed him around to many of his other lectures. And he inspired him because that guy was leading a very humble and tranquil lifestyle, which was sort of in contradiction to the one that he was entering, especially going to business school and all of that. And I think it's so interesting to see that lifestyle appealed to him, because that shows that in our innate nature, we have this, we have a yearning to be spiritual and connect to a higher being. So Jay Shetty's amazing, I think. Obviously all his views aren't totally in line with Islam, but he runs workshops and he has this website called Genius, and you can apply for life coaching and things like that. And his main aim is to increase daily happiness by 60%. And that's kind of hyperbolized in my opinion, but obviously he's on the right track and his aim is geared towards the right path, right? And in one of his interviews, he said that I want to help people find stillness, purpose, peace, and clarity in their daily lives by adopting the mindset that monks have, and the ones that they've developed for thousands of years. But in contradiction to what we talked about with the monks sort of just stayed away from anything materialistic, right? But he said that so his mindset is a lot more similar to ours in the way that we think of the material world and desires. And he's not really for people moving away from the material world entirely. So he was like, if someone came up to me and said that they want to be a billionaire, he wouldn't stop them. But he said that you'll be more successful, but you won't be happy. And you're more likely to get there if your intentions aren't just based on money. So I found that so interesting, because it's kind of similar to how our thinking is about money and happiness, and his goal. I think it was really cool.
Yeah, that's a really interesting goal. He's sort of taken more of an I want to spread goodness approach, hasn't he? And he kind of made that spirituality about, not only for himself, he's made it about spreading it through social media and everything, which is, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And spreading all those moral principles, which is great. I was thinking of Keanu Reeves, who does the opposite of that. He doesn't exactly preach all this spirituality stuff, but I know that he does a lot under the hood. He does a lot of charity work, and he doesn't really want to be known for it. Apart from his acting and music career, he is a very spiritual person. and I think it's after he did the movie, something called like Little Buddhist or something, that he was like, oh yeah, I'm really like in touch with Buddhism, and he doesn't exactly identify himself as Buddhist, but he's like, yeah, no, I'm really in touch with like with God and all this other stuff. And so that's kind of like difference of like these celebrities that I guess Jay Shetty built his career on this premise, you know, after like
yeah, so like he has his own sort of thing, and he doesn't, like Keanu Reeves, he doesn't classify himself as a monk or anything like
Right.
that, but like he was like, this is supposed to be how your lifestyle is, so like his whole anything that he preaches, it's all based off of this stuff. Yeah. Yeah, even his social media, like even his social media, like he said, like he's very against social media, but he was like, how else am I supposed to reach such great audiences without being a part of that and everything? So yeah.
So when I was thinking about like celebrities and spirituality, like I like the first thing I thought of is you know, like those kind of celebrities in Hollywood that are under extreme pressure. It's that kind of lifestyle which is like, it's not really in line with Islamic values, so like drugs and stuff like that, and they kind of get to this point where they reach breaking point. And there are some celebrities which will just undergo a complete transformation, and they'll be so spiritual. So one of the ones I was looking into is Orlando Bloom. He's a famous actor. Nice. So he actually converted to Buddhism, and every morning he drinks a special oil. He calls it brain oil, and he does 20 minutes of Buddhist.
Wait. Do you know what it is? That's
what?
Really dodgy.
What is it? Some nut, like macadamia nut based.
Okay.
You know.
Sure.
But so he does these Buddhist chants with his children. And so basically, the reason he converted to Buddhism, and I think this is why a lot of like Hollywood kind of like film people are drawn to spirituality, is that life is such an extreme of the spectrum. Like there's no balance in that life. Even like the whole like idea of acting and stuff, you're living a fake life. Like say, for example, like, I don't know if you guys watch the show Grey's Anatomy, but something like that will go on for like 15, 20 years. And you're just living a fake life for that long. And it's like, that really drains you because it's very impersonal. And so he was saying that the reason he has become so spiritual is you can become lost in that like false identity. And because you are a different identity for so long, you kind of lose who you are. So he says that like a lot of celebrities he knows as well are kind of turning towards spirituality because they need to strike that balance, because like even for us it's so like easy to get caught up in like our daily lives, but like for them they're playing two people at once, like themselves and a big person, and like that's quite overwhelming, right? Like you need to be able to ground yourself to do like something like that. So yeah, I find that really interesting.
So what's interesting about us, and Sakina was saying this as well before, how everyone always has that like want within them to like look for something like the deeper meaning, you know, the big questions like, why am I here, what is the meaning of life? And you know, this whole idea of like self-actualization and all this like really deep stuff that humans like need to answer. Even celebrities have that, and you see this very like extreme like spectrum that they go to. They either go to one side, which is like Buddhism, and they're like, yeah, okay, they need to be like completely zen and all this stuff. And then you get the other spectrum, which is what we're obviously going to talk about in a minute, about addictions and stuff. And it kind of ties into that. They're addicted to their lifestyle. You know, as celebrities being celebrities, they have all the money in the world, they have all the freedom in the world, they can do whatever they want. So when they ask these questions, some of them just are like distracted. So they won't ask these questions. They're just distracted by the dunya, which is which been given to them. You know, all this money and everything. They'll just go along with it. And then you get the other extreme, which is, you know, like all the people that just sell their souls to the devils. And we're not talking about that today, so we won't get into that.
Yeah, that's really true. Like for some people, like celebrities, all of the material stuff is enough. But like now, increasingly, like even when you have everything, all the money and all the cars and an amazing house and everything, like for both of what you guys were saying, like, you know, there's that inner feeling like, is this it? Like, is this all that life is? Is there nothing more to it, basically?
Just to expand upon what Naa said about the satanic sort of
we're not talking about that, Sakina.
no, but I think like even that, like obviously that's some ridiculous extreme, but how many people, like how normalized is it now? Like even for example, what was it the Super Bowl I don't know what it was. Where did that
something
guy,
like that.
the Sam Smith, where did he perform?
Oh,
Yeah.
Where
I-
was that?
I don't know. I heard
What was
about
that?
it, but I'm not
I
sure.
can't remember when it was, but it was recently, right? It was like
Yeah,
a
it's very recent, I think.
And I was just thinking, like, firstly, how normalized has that become? Like, it's mental. And secondly, even though that's on the other side of the Buddhist extreme, but even that is tapping into some, even though it's the wrong
Higher
type
thing.
of spirituality, it's still
Right.
like, like they're summoning the devil. Like, it's still some level of connection with a higher unseen being.
That's true.
Like,
There's still,
it can go both ways. And obviously, like, but I think like it's just all throughout celebrities. So
Here's a question. Yeah. And it's a bit off topic, but what, like, do you think it's better to be on that extreme end of the spectrum where you are trying to answer those questions, like, oh, like I need some spirituality, like a higher being, or do you think it's better to just be completely lost in the dunya? Like you're not even asking these questions.
I don't know how to answer that.
yeah, that's a very confusing one to go down. Like,
Yeah.
because
It's
you can,
really very wrong.
it's a massive rabbit hole. Like, just obviously all hope that when you question yourself, you find a good answer, but it's not easy like that. Like, because like self-development is a very long, windy route. And the thing is, with some celebrities, sometimes, yeah, they do want to like change themselves, but they also do it for attention. So, for example, we were talking about coming off movies. Like, you've come off a movie. I was listening to a podcast recently, actually a while back, and
Of
it was
course you were. I'm kidding.
Yeah, it was a podcast, and an actor called Lucy Hale, she spoke about how she came off one of her famous shows, Pretty Little Liars.
Oh yeah.
And and she spoke about how like she felt kind of empty coming off the show, and it just felt so unreal that like she now has like a different life, and now she has to like adapt to like her new life now. And even in the show, like being in that Hollywood environment, she went through a lot of problems such as eating disorders and things like that. And some people won't be able to understand those kind of things, which is quite sad. And that's where like sometimes some people don't express themselves, but then they either go to the other extreme where like, oh, okay, I realize I've gone through a mistake. Now I need to explain, like question myself and this and that. And that might lead to something extreme. Maybe the devil worshipping stuff, maybe like Buddhist stuff, but that's kind of how it is, because they kind of want to have that extreme. It might be a buzz, it might be, we don't know, but like I've had a look at like loads of different celebrities, and you kind of see the general gist that like it has to go to an extreme, like we've all kind of established with like Sam Smith and a few others. But also speaking about the Hollywood circle, a big problem is like addictions and things like that. So for example, like alcohol was something Lucy Hale struggled with. Obviously, we don't drink alcohol in our religion, and we have, but there's like, and we, but yeah, there's like a lot of drugs mishandling and loads of different things that happen in Hollywood, and you just like in that kind of aspect, it needs to be very careful, because that can lead to like a very dark place. Yeah.
And I think there's this thing amongst celebrities and like pop culture now about self-love and being like whoever you want to be for you and all of that. There's a lot more that we could talk about there, but and I think that's what sort of leads to these extremes, because either you have self-love and then you realize that you're not, that you can either go the way that we have, like we're not ourselves without God, like we have nothing without God. And I think that's what these monks also sort of touch upon. But then you have the self-love that leads to the Sam Smith stuff, where they're so in love with themselves that they
make themselves God.
They make themselves God, and they
worship themselves.
Themselves and their own little circle. And I think that's such a dangerous thing that is sort of going on. And so again, it's so normalized, because if you're not, like, this is a bit off topic, a bit about mental health and stuff, but if you sort of say, oh, you shouldn't love yourself and all of that, then people would accuse you of not being mental health friendly, or not being careful, or there's all these restrictions, and like to an extent, it's obviously good that we recognize mental health issues and we're more aware of how people can be affected by traumas and things. But oh my God, it's such an extreme. Like, you can't say anything and everything is just to do with yourself, and it's just such a selfish mindset. Like, we talked about the selfish mindset before, right? Like, I think it's so, and it's being pushed so much by Hollywood, and like, it's really scary because it's all around us, you know, especially with social media. But yeah,
and social media, going on to how that is just a disease, a virus, and how it spreads and gets you addicted to it. It proper like gets you hooked, because of the, you know, that immediate gratification of all these videos, just straight away, like always scrolling. And auto scrolling is not a thing yet.
oh my God, it is on
I mean, no way. When?
yeah,
Where?
auto scroll.
Scary.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's scary, because
think it's
that's
on Insta
just
too.
gonna create robots.
yeah, exactly. We're already creating robots with like ChatGPT and everything.
Yeah, so scary. Honestly.
Oh, those are literal robots. I meant like turning humans into just bots.
But
Like,
also
they're
with-
just
yeah,
flesh robots.
with also like social media, it also reduces our attention span to things. So for example, with like TikTok, there's a few studies and things like that where like our attention span's now gone down to like 12 seconds or something like that. I don't know. There is
Oh
a
yeah,
study out there.
I'm the
What it is.
prime suspect of that. It's so bad. I can't concentrate for more than 5 minutes. Like, it's really, really bad. Like, my parents get so annoyed at me. My siblings are like, "What do you mean?" I was just having a conversation. I'll be like, "Oh, sorry, like I just zoned out." You know what I mean?
5 minutes is
It's
good.
a
Mine's
miracle
worse.
that I'm doing this podcast. Honestly.
But I think also like TikTok and stuff like that, like for me, I feel like you always need your brain to be stimulated by something. Like, even if you're like cooking, doing anything, you just need something like on in the background. Like, I'll like be on TikTok, but I'll have a movie on in the background because I just need something there. Like,
Yeah.
I think we find it very hard to just be alone, like with ourselves, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
You're
And
kind of
with
honestly, yeah.
detached.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can get a bit overwhelming when you're like trying to take in loads of information. You go to uni, you come back from uni, you're trying to like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, you know what, let me put a movie on the side. It's like you're trying to follow it, but then you kind of just completely zone out. It's like you watch the movie whilst you're washing dishes, you get to the end of it, like, what's going on
What
here?
happened?
Where am I at?
And I
Yeah.
think it's such a like easy coping mechanism. Like, whenever I'm anxious, or you know, like even when you don't want to look like you're like a loner in some sort of situation, like you'll go on your phone to like have that, like, even though it's so sad, like your phone's your friend, like it just sort of helps you in some weird way. It helps you. But like exactly that instant gratification thing. But it's so short term. Like with TikTok, even like you scroll one video and you're like 2 seconds, you scroll to the next one. Nothing is giving you that gratification, that full entire gratification. Like even with a movie on in the background, you're still doing something and you're on your phone at the same time. So like slowly we're constantly in need for more and more like dopamine, basically, and we're getting it from these things, but for a very short time, and they're not like, they're just these addictive habits that sort of kick in. And I remember when I was really young, there was this TED talk about procrastination and something called the instant gratification monkey. And even though this was about procrastination, I always think about that monkey because it was like the one thing that would be in your head to distract you from the life around you and just to feel that same level of happiness the whole time. And I think as nowadays, we're so used to not being able to turn ourselves away from feeling down, which is why we can't even deal with it anymore. Like even for myself, like as soon as I feel overwhelmed by something, I'll just distract myself on my phone. Like it's the easiest thing to do. As soon as something comes to my brain that I don't like thinking about, I'll just go on my phone, which is so bad. But like, I think it's just the way that our society is now. And, you know, like the imams obviously have given us amazing tools like that. We talked about du'as and all of that. And obviously, number one, the primary issue is that we don't use it as we use our social media and our phones instead of the du'as and everything that we're given. And also the fact that we're doing it so wrong. Like, I think it was Sheikh Shamali who said, you know how we're always told that prayer will fix everything, but we all pray and it, like, you know, it's not, we still have all of these issues and we're still going towards other means and external means of dopamine and everything. So obviously we're doing it all wrong.
Speaking about prayer, actually, say the Naqshbandi did like a really good lecture on prayer and how he spoke about how Imam Ali, I don't know if he mentioned it in Nahjul Balagha, but his whole series is on Nahjul Balagha. And in this lecture he did, he spoke about how you need to think about in wudu, for example, when you should have like the intention, and there's like a dua, I think, that Imam Ali had made, and it was about when you wash your face, you it's something about, oh, the please wash my sins so I can see the light on the day of judgment. It's like, when you wash your right arm, you make me be on the people of the right, and then when you wash your left, make me be of the people that are not on the left. And there's like, when you do your head, I think it's to do with the earth, or I think I've got a bit lost there. But when it comes to prayer, there's also when you bow down into ruku, people talk about, he brought up something interesting. He's like, people talk about how you should keep your back straight, but actually you should, Imam Ali talks about how you should keep your neck stretched out for the religion, or something like that. Or like his intention was, oh Allah, make me be able to sacrifice myself for the religion, or something like that. And I felt that was quite interesting, and quite like, whoa, like you don't know if that's the meaning of what was supposed to be said, but like trying to have that intention and mindset about things, to try and focus on your namaz is quite powerful when you think about that.
That's important, like for like, sorry to cut you off, like slowing down your what you're doing, your wudu and your prayer, and slowing down and actually understanding what you're doing and proper focusing in on what's going on. That's a reflection of real life. And they always we always hear that prayer is a reflection of your life. However you treat prayer is how your life is going to go. If you rush prayer, your life is going to be rushed. In the same way, if we're rushing prayer, then everything else is going to be rushed, and we're going to keep looking for the next thing, the next piece of entertainment to satisfy us, and nothing's going to satisfy us. So that's really, really important, when we just slow down and focus and like proper just deep what we're doing, like we're in front of God and we're praying and making it important.
And it's easy to say that, but then like we've come across over the last 2 sessions, we've spoken about how we need to make small sustainable changes. So for example, start with like the wudu, and like I did that today, and I was like, okay, whoa, like it's kind of crazy.
Big difference. Yeah.
You're like, you actually realize what you're doing. It's like, all right, quickly, let me just go do wudu. Let me go. We need to go in 5 minutes. Let me just step out the door and then go. Like, just take your time and then do it, and then you'll try and think about it. And reflection is very key in like our religion. And we were talking about how we spend so much time on social media and things like that, trying to get away from our emotions and things like that. I feel like, even personally me, I don't reflect enough, but I feel like we should try and do that a lot more and implement that in our lives, because reflection is a very important thing, and it can help us change for the better. Personally,
I think
sorry, go on.
I think that's so important. And like you were saying about the slowing down thing, something that I've tried to slow down in is eating, because you know how like there's the hadith about chewing 40 times, and I think I chewed twice before I swallow my food.
But as a hairy, you can't. You have to choose twice and just get it down.
I know, and like that's why you don't feel satisfied with food. Even like all you want to, like sometimes you just want to eat constantly because you're not feeling satisfied because you've inhaled it, you haven't thought about it. My mom always like she always tells us how every time you chew, you need to think about what you're eating and where it came from, and how you be so grateful for the fact that you have this food. But all we want to do is like put something on in the background and inhale our food, and then be like, okay, what's my next meal, you know?
But you know, even with food, I feel like there's this massive like recently like thing about instant gratification. Because if you think like in the past, there was no like fast food and drive through with it, like where within like 60 seconds you've got your food on a plate. And it's like we've like kind of lost that appreciation for food. Like food isn't to nourish us, it's just like another form of entertainment. I think that's why, like, for a lot of people, like, if you see for a lot of people when they're stressed or like something's going on in their life, like they might not turn to their phone, but they'll turn to food. Like so many people, when they're stressed out, they'll just eat and eat and eat because it's like their comfort mechanism. Like it's the way like you're looking for dopamine on your phone, you're looking for like some sort of relief from food. I think that in that way we're treating like food has become an addiction for people. Like it's actually unhealthy, the mindset we have towards it. Like we don't think of it as like nourishing our bodies, you know, it's to keep us full, it's to give us strength. It's just like, oh, what's tasty, you know, like we kind of lost the actual like food like takes a long time to make and everything, and we just shove it. Like, it's just, as you were saying, like we don't like think about it, we just 2 bites and it's gone, you know. It's crazy.
And some people can also go the other way, where with food actually, where they, I think I spoke about it, like they a bit more concerned about their body. They think they're getting overweight, and so they start eating less and less and less and less. And this came up in the Lucy Hale podcast I was listening to, and she felt that like at the time she was like, oh my god, I'm getting fatter and fatter and fatter. But then when she looks back at it and steps back and reflects, she says that, oh, like at the time I was perfectly fine. But and that's a very hard thing. Like it's not easy just saying just don't eat. I mean, just eat. It's not. Like, for example, in her case, it was about drinking as well, where she's like, when she had a massive drinking addiction, and she's like, people told her like, just don't drink. Like, okay, thank you, that's gonna help so much. Like with those kind of things, you just gotta, it's a very hard thing to process, and you should be able to try and reflect on it to yourself. It's a very hard barrier to break. And maybe speaking to friends and people that are close to you that you actually trust might be able to help you out of these situations.
But you know, like even not eating can kind of be seen as an addiction, because you're kind of addicted to just achieving this perfect body. And especially like, well, like a lot of things is about achieving perfection, and we become really like obsessed with like getting to that goal. Like we kind of lose the journey,
especially
even
with
like
social media,
Islam, anything. Like we just lose the beauty of the journey, because we just have to get to the goal. And like we kind of we're always focusing on the future. We can't focus on right now. And that's what like the world is like these days, right? You can't just enjoy the moment because there's all this other stuff going on in the background.
Yeah.
You know, a very underrated hadith by Imam Ali is that he said that my Shia will be those where their bellies touch their backs. Now, deep that their bellies will touch their backs, which means that they, you know, you can see that they are like, you know, they don't eat much, which is really, really deep. Like we don't understand that, like because we know that all of our moms, they ate very, very minimal. They gave all their, you know, their dinner to everyone else, and all the homeless people and everything else.
There's a story about the 3 fasts they did as well, where they just where they fasted for 3 days and they just gave their food away.
Exactly.
Would you do that? Would you do that right now? Like it's crazy.
No, we wouldn't be able to survive. That's the thing. Yeah, and
it wouldn't even be our body that wouldn't be able to survive. It's our mind. Like we'd just go crazy thinking about it. Like even like if you think about it, we all fast, and we've all fasted long fasts at one point, and we've been able to do it, right? It's just the mind that and I think what you were saying, Mariam, about nourishment is so important, because like on one hand we're thinking about like the nourishment of our bodies. Obviously sometimes we're not fully focusing on that, and we're, you know, being a bit haphazard with it, but then we never think about nourishing the soul. And all of these things, like all of these addictions, even food, they sort of eat away at that soul nourishment. And like when you think when you think about like your life and what you want to change about it, and you know, like how we're trying to achieve all of these things about perfection, and we focus on one thing so much that we just disregard everything else. I feel like the first thing that we disregard is like the nourishment of our soul, which is so sad. And it's probably the main thing that's affecting us, and all of these other things are sort of, I feel like, fall into place if we had a bigger focus on the nourishment of our soul, and, you know, protecting it and feeding it, the correct things. And even food, we know, like from hadith, we know that food affects your soul as well.
Building on top of that, is we were talking about how we need to give that time for self-reflection, right? Like what does that mean? Like do we just sit in a room and sort of like ask ourselves what I've done wrong, or like what can I do better in the day? It's kind of things like journaling, what we were saying before, you know, like that kind of thing, self-reflection. And when we were talking about, you know, we can't just sit by ourselves, you know, we have to always have something going on. Even if you're reading a book, that's still you doing something else. You're still absorbing something else. You're not just giving yourself time between you and your creator, right? Which is when it's prayer. That's the only time where you're doing that. You're not absorbed. You're not doing anything else. It's just between you and God. And so those little micro adjustments, it's really difficult to implement in your life. But, you know, I would say things like, you know, keeping a diary, you know, journaling, just to give yourself that downtime between you and God, and you and what you're doing with yourself, like what you're thinking, what you want to be doing, your desires, all this blah blah blah.
I feel like, sorry. I'd say especially being at university, like living out at university, I've felt that, especially this term, because I had a lot going on last term, and I've realized that, you know what, you think you need to are very like time to yourself is very underrated.
Mm.
And if you can just take time out and just like do something mindlessly, for example, like cutting pomegranate or even something like that, like
Yeah.
just doing something completely mindless, you can do that.
Yeah.
You can just think like just think to yourself about
Ponder.
yeah. And it is very hard to just take out 5 minutes of your day, because it's easier said than done, saying 5 minutes out your day, write a diary. Like, oh my God, really? Do I have to write a diary? Like,
It's not hard. It's not
Not
hard. I
hard.
found it so
I
difficult, but just take it out.
yeah.
I think first, like on what Abid said, I think that's so important. Like obviously there are people who have never sort of had that diary lifestyle or something. And there's this guy we know, his name is Sheikh Sadiq, and he just said, oh, sometimes I just step outside my house, look at the sky and go, wow, mashallah, you know, goes back inside, and like that's your sort
Subhanallah,
of
that's it.
tiny little bit of reflection.
Absolutely, yeah, that's it.
But then obviously if you want to take it further, like there's something that I used to do, which I feel like I should get back in the habit of, but I used to really like doing this. I used to just write. Sometimes I would not be bothered to write about it, so I just think about it. But my dad taught me this habit where he'd be like, what 3 things good and 3 things bad that happened in your day. And writing it down is a completely different level. Like honestly makes such a difference, because you just go back, even the next year you'll be like, oh, that went well, that blah, blah, blah. And then it will be a lot more
the pattern
documented and patterned. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I used to, this is quite childish, but I used to mark my day out of like ABCD, how good or bad it went. But it would just make me really think about it. And sometimes I would have like a really bad day, but when I'd write it down and be like, okay, that was so petty, like relax, you know? So I think that really helped. And I think that's like the smallest thing you can do. It's like 6. You don't even have to do 6, you can do 1 of each, you know?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I used to actually mark up my day some days. Like I'd actually do that as well. Like, for example, like you can't have every single day where you like trying to smash out uni work and trying to catch up. And like, there'll be always like some days where it's like, all right, like this happened. And you've kind of got to accept that sometimes you're not going to be able to get what you need to done in that day. And some days, like I set myself out just straight chill the whole day and just like just relax. And that sometimes we don't, like we've said, reflection and relaxing, we don't do enough. Especially I think at university, we're all like busy lives and things like that. We have a lot going on, like social life, uni, sports, for example. There's loads of things we want to do, but taking that 5 minutes out, stepping back can help a lot.
Also, I feel like if we do like reflection and everything, we kind of just leave it to the spare time, like like I'm sat on the train, I've got nothing else to, I'll do it then, you know. But like for something else, like say you were going to work, you wouldn't just leave it to your spare time, you'd plan it out. And I feel like that's really important, because we need to actively, like in our mind, realize the importance of it. If it's just like aside, at the end of the day, if I have time, I might reflect. You're kind of just like dismissing the importance. And like in order to like be able to reflect properly, like, you know, there's, I think it's a hadith from Imam Rada, I think, and it's something like if you don't reflect, you're not one of like my followers, or something like that. And it's like we kind of treat it as just like a last thing we do before bed, but like it's so important to like be doing it throughout the day and to like actually make time for it, you know.
If we take the example of prayer, you know, that's splitting up our day, you know, at different intervals. Doesn't matter what you're doing, you hear the adhan, go pray. You know, that's what we've been taught, and that's the way it should be. And there should that again, the whole idea of prayer should reflect real life. You know, what do we do in prayer? We go into ruku, we go into sajda. What do we say? We say, thank you, God, because I'm bowing. Thank you, God, now that I'm lying in prostration. We're literally just stating what we're doing and thanking God for it. That's how simple it is. That we're just reflecting on what we're doing, and we're just appreciating what we're doing in the moment. And the same thing that Sakina was saying with just going outside and looking at the stars, saying subhanallah, you know, just appreciating that is just amazing, and it's from God, and I'm just here in the moment. Fantastic.
Yeah. And you know, like Mariam, how you said like the planning, and prayer is so perfect for that, because we literally have a schedule of it. Like, you know, Allah literally told us when in our days, like checkpoints, and it's like that's actually, this is just giving me a realization now, like it's actually spread out so perfectly. And we have those times, like we don't, obviously we need to do as much as we can, but he's already given us those times, and we just treat it like go pray and finish and like go.
And you know, like a lot of people say like, oh, like in Islam, why is it that like Allah tells you to pray when and like whatever? Why isn't it like you just pray when you feel like it? But I think you do need that discipline, and also like
Yeah.
it's so beautiful because like whatever like state you're in, you go towards Allah. Like say like for example, we didn't have a structured prayer, you might only go to Allah when you're feeling really like desperate for something. But in this way, like whether you're happy or sad, you're stressed, you're confused, anything, you still have that like like not opportunity, but like that time to go to Allah. Like in a way, like we need Allah. Like it's so amazing that Allah calls us like to come towards Him.
Definitely. And you know, sometimes I feel like, you know, a couple of days ago we talked about last week I think we talked about the vibe that you get when you're like reciting stuff all together and how that subconsciously affects you. I think
Yeah.
these like little bits of reflection, I think if you do it sincerely, then without you even knowing, they're gonna have a positive impact in your life. Like you're not even going to realize, and the things that start falling into place and things that start going good, and you're not actually going to think about. And obviously we should think about like, oh my God, like alhamdulillah, Allah's given me this and that. But it's because of those small acts that we do, and thanking Allah and all of that, that, you know, these things fall into place. And I think so subconsciously, like you wouldn't really think that, oh, today I prayed really well and I really focused, and then the next day something good happens, you know? So yeah.
Beautiful.
So if no one else has any other points.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So inshallah, thank you guys. It was an amazing session, I
No
think.
worries.
Next
Thank
week, we're going to talk about balance, right? Reflection, things like
Balance.
that. I think it leads on quite well. We talked a little bit about that today as well. So yeah, join us next week, inshallah, guys. And thank you so much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Islam.